I was sitting in my Audi RS at Ron GT in front of my parents' huge Tudor house in Connecticut city of Greenwich, left the $145,000 car on purpose around the corner where they couldn't see it. But my mom's text message was perfectly designed to hurt them. We need to talk about your situation at the family meeting at 7 p.m. That's what they've been calling my job choices for the past 3 years, ever since I quit my high-level job as marketing head at Wallace & Sons to go out, on my own, or as they saw it, to become a receptionist. My phone rang, and it was Jessica, my real executive assistant, was telling me about the final deal to buy Morgan Stanley for $2. $3 billion, they won't go any higher. I smiled as I typed back, "Accept, have legal prepare." The papers, and Jessica's perfect timing on that entry, which we talked about. 7:30 p.m. sharp. I'll bring the advance copy of Forbes that I looked at myself in. A simple black jacket from Zara was worn by the rearview mirror to dress it down, and little makeup to make them think I couldn't afford better. The surprise. Tonight even better. The front door opened before I could knock. As I watched, my mom stood there in her channel suit, her perfect highlights framing her critical frown. "Emily, dear, I was late by 1 minute, Mom." "Small things matter in business, dear," she led me inside. Something you might want to think about right now. The living room Dad was set up like an intervention in his power spot by the fireplace. Wallace & Sons made his CEO suit, which he wore. My older brother Michael and his on the imported Italian. Leather couch with his wife Diana. Even Aunt Patricia had been called in while sitting on the old wingback chair like a hawk in Love the Blazer. Diana gave him an air kiss. I told her, "My cheek, Zara's having a sale to be sustainable," and then I watched her. I can't stand the thought of wearing off-the-rack clothes. "Let's begin, Dad." He cleared his throat and said, "We're here because we're worried about you." Michael gave a serious nod 3 years ago in charge of marketing at Wallace & Sons and lived in that apartment on Park Avenue, Stewart. Ah, yes, Stewart, the investment banker they almost hired. I had planned to get married to before I called. It off to start my own business, whose company I beat last week in a bid for a $500 million tech purchase. They didn't know that, and Dad made a vague motion. Living in that little apartment in Brooklyn and worked as a secretary and executive assistant for Mom fixed it as if that made it better. At some new company, no one has heard of Michael. I held back a smile as I asked, "What's it called again?" Thompson Digital Solutions, a company he had never heard of, was just worth $14. $2 billion, or something like that. Daughter was just made a partner at Goldman Sachs, the youngest said. Female partner in their past. She took a deep breath and said, "That could have been you." It was 7:24 p.m. when I looked at my watch, while Jessica was coming in. "Have you even told us what this company does?" Mom asked. "Keep these long hours a secret, and what do you have to show for them?" "We found your pay. Range online." Michael took out his phone and said, $65,000 to is $85,000 really enough for an executive assistant in New York? Emily, I make that much, and Dad stood up and took on the role of CEO. Ends now. We've set up an interview for next week at Wallace & Sons. It's not as good of a junior marketing job as the one you had before, but it's a start. And Stuart's mom, who is still single, added, "Hopefully he just made managing," I told the director in a quiet voice. "I'm happy where I am." Happy Dad's voice rose. "You're being upset about having to work as a secretary when you could be." Jessica came in dressed to kill in Armani and carrying an advance copy of Forbes and a wallet made of leather. "Miss Thompson, I'm sorry to bother you, but your plane is ready for tomorrow's meeting in Tokyo and you need to sign the Morgan Stanley purchase papers. Also, Forbes wants to confirm the picture on the cover of next week's 40 Under 40 magazine." The room got cold. Mom's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. Michael's phone went dead, slipped out of his hands, leaving Dad speechless. The word disappointment was still hang in the air. I held out my hand and asked, Are those the acquisition papers? Final numbers we talked about, $2. $3 billion. Miss Thompson all cash offer Diana choked on her champagne. Billion Thompson Digital Solutions. I said as I signed the papers with my Blanc pen is actually just a branch of the parent business. Thompson. Global Technologies is the biggest AI and machine learning company in the world. Paused and looked at my dad. You may have heard of us. We had just bought getting a majority stake in Wallace & Sons. The Mont Blanc hit the sale. As I finished the papers, I heard my mom's wine glass break behind me. The foreign marble floor. Jessica, please have these taken care of by the law right away. About the meeting in Tokyo tomorrow, I stood up and straightened my Zara jacket. It's going to be a long week, so choose the Gulfstream G800 over the G600. Miss Thompson, of course, and about that dinner next Thursday with Elon Musk. Change the time and tell him I have a family dinner that night. I went into my shell, family shocked. That is if everyone is free talk about Wallace & Sons' new direction a lot. The pause was, then Michael whispered from the couch, CEO, my little sister is a CEO. In fact, Jessica gave me Forbes magazine. This is the lead story. She's the queen of AI. How Emily Thompson made $14 billion while she was there. People in her family thought she was just a secretary. I smiled at my dad, who was still frozen by the fireplace. So, Dad, I don't think I'll take that junior marketing job. The next morning, I sat in my real office, which was on the top floor of a shiny A tower in Hudson Yards where you can see New York City wake up from the floor to see through windows. The Thompson Global Technologies sign lit up on the most of Lower Manhattan could see the wall behind my desk. My phone still wouldn't stop. Since last night, Mom Emily, please call us. We need to talk. Michael? About that junior analyst job I've been looking for. Diana just saw the Forbes on the web. Always knew you had promise. Dad, no messages. Jessica showed up with my coffee and market reports in the morning. Father has been in the hallway of Wallace & Sons for 2 hours. Security wants to know what's going on. I pulled up the hallway camera feed to see what was going on. There he was, Richard. Thompson Sr.'s CEO suit was still on, but he looked smaller than. Yesterday, the powerful boss of Wallace & Sons, who is now officially my employee, was waiting for me. I told her. Have him escorted up like any other visitor, she added, and Jessica hold the door. All calls except for Tokyo. While I waited, I looked at the collection of objects on the trip my family didn't know about is shown on the wall of my office. A copyright certificate from when I was 23 years old, the check from my first big client, and a picture. When Thompson Digital and I signed the lease on our first real office, there were only 5 people in a wee work area. Dad walked in when the door opened, stopped taking in the huge office with its great views of the many real-time market info on screens, the digital art worth millions of dollars, and the "your mom couldn't sleep," one of the minor signs of power I had worked hard to develop. Last night, he finally said, the Italian marble is likely still damaged. Why didn't you tell us? He winced. Tell you what, Dad. As I pointed to a chair, I said that I was building something revolutionary while you were all busy put-downs. I bought Wallace & Sons to protect it from the way you run things now. Heavy on the board, which they knew had voted unanimously for the purchase. The value of your business dropped 40% in 2 years, Dad. The market is changing. 2 answers that use AI, and Wallace & Sons is still running like it's 1985. So after all this time, we thought you were a boss helper. I said yes, even though I was actually running global building relationships with tech giants and running operations for an AI empire. I paused, but you never asked. Patents that are changing whole businesses, what I did. It was because you were too embarrassed by my... Basically, he took out his phone and showed me the Bloomberg story that had just dropped. Emily Thompson. This is a quote from the stealth CEO who built a billion-dollar business in secret. Said in a quiet voice that Elon Musk called you the smartest person in AI, the same Elon Musk who's having dinner with you next Thursday. And Wednesday is now Thursday, and the Wallace and Sons board meeting is first on Thursday. Voting on new leadership. It was time for business. His face lost its color. Face. You're firing me, Dad. You're getting a great deal. The company needs new leadership, and Michael has been trained to take over. Stopped lost $50 million on that failed move into Asia last year. Golf games and favoritism were part of grooming. Jessica's opinion came through. The speaker says that Miss Thompson Tokyo is ready for the merger call. A Bloomberg reporter is here to give you the inside scoop on Dad, who stood up straight. Tie a nervous behavior I saw Emily as a child a lot of times last night, what we said. You called me a failure, Dad, in front of the whole family because I was only a secretary and didn't follow your paved road. I was wrong. You were. I went. To the looking out the window at a private helicopter mine land on the helipad of our building. Do you know what was the worst? It wasn't the taunts or the snide comments. It was that none of you asked me once in 3 years if I was happy. Building something I believed in. You thought I failed even though I wasn't. Following your idea of success. Now, his voice was quiet. That we know of, I turned around and let him see how much worse I'd become. You can now sit back and watch. The Bloomberg reporter is here to cover the Wallace and Sons deal. Your daughter now owns the business you worked 40 years to build, which will be news to everyone tomorrow. The family history is safe, but not where you thought it would be. I took out a box from my desk. These are the terms of your retirement. You will get a lot of money. Full benefits come with being a board emeritus, but operational control stops next week. I shook as I grabbed the folder. All this time you were planning this, no, Dad. I bought Wallace and Sons because it made good business sense, because I was building something amazing. Watch now. If you'll excuse me, I need to merge to talk with Tokyo. When he got to the door, he turned around and said, Your mother, she asked me about Sunday dinner. I'll have Jessica send a car at 7 ox. Michael should not ask his dad about that analysis job. His trading, we don't accept this record. After he left, Jessica brought in the morning's purchase reports. Your brother's been calling every investment bank in the city trying to verify your net worth. I laughed when I thought about Michael's smirk when he told me I made $85,000 a year. Send him our latest SEC report. He should do the numbers and the Wallace and Sons board packet on his own. Send it out tomorrow and let them think they work for Richard Thompson Sr. for one more day. I picked up the Forbes magazine with my cover picture staring back at me with confidence. People aren't being shown wrong. They're just finding out how wrong they were. Tokyo is buzzed. While holding Miss Thompson, I straightened my real Armani jacket. I didn't need any more Zara, and looked at the screens where some of Asia's most important business leaders were waiting. It was time to show them what a secretary can do. The office for Wallace and Sons fell. When I walked in exactly 1 week later, it was quiet. The Zara jacket that had been there was gone. 15 board members sat around the mahogany table, each wearing a perfectly made channel suit. Table with my dad at the head. Michael sat at Dan's right hand for the last time. The SEC filing I sent him showed that he had lost his normal smirk and had his jaw tightened. I am worth $8, $2 billion more than the whole Thompson family. Family times 50, I said. Good morning, as I took my seat across from them. Dad, I think we should talk about some organizational changes before we start. Wait, a minute. Michael stood up, his face red with anger. You can't just walk in. I gave a nod to Jessica, who was handing out leather goods. Thompson Global gave each board member their investments at 9 a.m. this morning. It owns 67% of Wallace and Sons voting shares and is the CEO of Thompson Global. I'm making changes right away. This is our family business. Dad, tell her she can't sit down, Michael's dad said in a low voice. Already knew what was going to happen. Let's look over your work, shall we? I linked my laptop to the projector. Wallace and the present management. Suns has lost 40% of its market value because its moves into Asia did not work out. Digital change that failed and cost $50 million and wasted $30 million on clients. The board members moved the company's return rate down to 60%. Uncomfortably, these numbers weren't new to them. But what worried me the most was that I kept going. Is this a new slide that showed internal emails, systematic discrimination against female leaders, such as being told to maintain traditional leadership relations? Several board members took a quick look away. They agreed with those rules. Michael said, "That's taken out of context. We were preserving company. Culture, the culture that turned down my marketing plans 3 years ago. I pulled send out another email or the group that thought my plan. To integrate AI was cute. The proud dad's face turned pale after writing that email. Here's what happens next. I took charge of the room like my dad taught me, but I didn't expect what happened next. I would use these lessons against him. Richard Thompson Sr. is leaving his job. Michael Thompson's job is also removed right away. The board will be reorganized. Right away with a focus on new technology and variety. Michael slammed his hand on the table and said, "You can't fire me. I'm family." I should have looked at his trade history. Here are the risks you took without permission. They'll start an SEC probe because of my leadership. Would you like that or a resignation in private with a large severance package? The room became very quiet. Michael's face turned from red to white. You're ruining Dad's name. He tried one last time. No, Michael, I'm not going to do it. Wallace and Sons was 3 years away from going bankrupt and needed to save it. Your traditional beliefs? They were killing. A company that had been around for 100 years. Want to know what your office sister did in the same 3? Many years ago, Jessica turned down the lights on the screen. Thomson Global Technologies. The growth chart looked like it was going up like a rocket. Market cap, 14. 2 billion customers kept 98% of the time. Profit margins tripled the business. We also announced this morning that we will be working with Tesla on Next. That's why Elon keeps changing the date of dinner. One of the board, AI integration people, softly whistled, and someone else was already updating his LinkedIn profile. Dad Michael desperately looked at our dad and said, "Say something, but Dad just finally got a good look at me." Not as his failing daughter, but as he got to be the business leader he'd always wanted, but not the way he had planned. Severance bonuses are very good, so I kept my job. Health insurance, stock options, a nice retirement for Dad Michael. You'll get 2 years' pay as long as... Since you agreed not to share your trading information, they will stay private. Michael's voice broke. Then the SEC becomes very interested in your Asian choices about growth. Those missing funds, I found them. Michael slouched in his chair. He stole millions of dollars because he thought no one would notice, but I did. I kept track of every violation while building my own business. The cars will get you home. Point to the town cars waiting outside. Your offices are already full, but first I put one last order in. There is a paper on the table that Dad needs to sign. It's the leadership transfer papers. He picked up the same Mont Blanc that I had used to sign the papers for the sale in their living room. His hand was shaking. He asked quietly, "Was any of it real?" The small flat, the job as a secretary. The flat is real. I own the building's CEO. From the start, I only let you see what you wanted to see. Why? Because 3 years a while back, it was clear that my thoughts weren't welcome here. So I built something better that will help Wallace and Sons move forward, with or without the Thompson guys. He signed the papers, and Miss Thompson Jessica showed up at the door. The press is ready for the news. Thank you, Jessica. Gathered my things and then stopped to think. Oh, and Michael, that analyst job you wanted? Still no. We only hire people based on their skills. As I left, I heard, on board. Someone say in a whisper, "Did you see the Tesla deal numbers?" Another person said, Forget that. Did you see her? For 3 years, she has been signing as CEO right in front of them. Taking the lift down to the press conference, Jessica gave me the latest market news. Wallace & Sons stock were already up 30% on news of the deal. Thomson Global had gained another $1.06 billion since morning your mother called again, she said Sunday dinner. I smiled as I thought about the Forbes magazines I had sent to every country club in Greenwich. By Sunday, and every group of friends that had whispering about how bad I was, she would know the truth. I told her, I'll be there. As the elevator doors opened, a wall of cameras caught her eye. After all, I'm bringing a new Sunday dinner at the Thompson house as a family tradition that I follow to the letter. It felt different now. The foreign crystal and leaves china looked the same, graced the table, but the balance of power had changed because Mom had been with her personal chef making one of my favorite foods from childhood, a peace gift wrapped in puff pastry and truffle sauce. I got there early on purpose because I had spent the morning closing of a $5 billion deal from my office. Thomson Global Technologies stock had jumped an extra 15% after the news of the Tesla agreement. His retiring package had just grown by a few $1,000,000. Not that he was Emily's sweet mother rushed forward as I walked in to join the party, then stopped in her tracks, not sure how to meet this new version of her daughter. I gave my mom a gift bag from the CEO version and the millionaire version. Milan, I remembered that you liked their scarves. She took out the edition Herma silk, with a little shaking in her hands. I saw you on CNBC this Saturday morning with Warren Buffett. It was a short chat about market trends that I didn't know about, say that I flew back on my private jet just for this dinner. This will make them curious about my plans, for Dad would sometimes sit in his study and stare at the Wall Street Journal, which had a picture of me in it. Cover text: Stealth Queen. How Emily Thompson changed AI while she was playing secretary. The piece told about my whole journey, including all of my projects Wallace & Sons had turned down before I went out on my own. The board approved all without looking up, unanimous vote. He said the changes. Thomson Global's technology will make their awards 10 times bigger. And Michael agreed to the had to give them a layoff package after our forensic audit found more problems. I sat down next to him. He's lucky I'm not saying anything. Mom came in with us. Diana, I saw that she had been researching because she was drinking my favorite whiskey. She called and said slowly, "She is. They are getting a divorce after the SEC. Look into it. Michael's trade records weren't the only ones I looked at. Diana has been dealing on inside information about the whiskey for years, using Michael's access to the mom stopped in her tracks when the doorbell rang. It was Aunt Patricia. Insisted on being perfect. I smiled, should also see this. Aunt Patricia walked in wearing brand new clothes. Bought after hearing about my success, Emily, my sweetheart. I always told you, you were the smart one. Everyone. I actually took out my phone to hear the, when you called me a failure last week, the room temperature was dropped 10 degrees. I made a mistake like telling Barbara's daughter might be able to use my room at Wallace & Sons. I built an, by the way, Goldman Sachs turned down her offer to become a partner after. When Mom found out she was involved in Michael's Asian deals, her hands shook. As she served dinner, they talked about simple, safe things like until Dad finally asked the question. They'd all talk about the weather and kinds of wine. Putting down my fork, I asked, "Why didn't you tell us what you were building? Do you remember the first marketing talk I gave at Wallace & Sons? Adding AI to our customer service made you laugh and think it was cute that He admitted that we were wrong and that I thought I understood technology. Yes, but instead of fighting to prove myself, I decided to show you. All the time, every condescending comment and snide move only made me want to build something bigger. Something that isn't as small as Wallace & Sons Town business. And now? Mom asked quietly. Now that we know, now you get to watch as I transform the company. You'll watch as the daughter you threw out because she was too traditional to change secretary changes. An entire business. I asked Aunt Patricia to watch. As I finish everything you told me I couldn't, Jessica's phone rang. On time, Miss Thompson. Beijing agreed to the merger, and Time magazine needs you for next month's cover. The table went silent, and Mr. Musk confirmed it. Wednesday night's dinner. His team loved the prototype. Dad's hand shook his glass of wine. The sample of my newest AI idea was worth more than Wallace & Sons' whole market value. Thanks, Jessica. Tomorrow, send the jet to Beijing. I'll look over the papers myself. Mom tried again after I hung up. Having a family get-together next month. Your cousins would love to see you. My cousins made fun of my job as a secretary on Facebook. Send me their resumes. My HR. The team is always looking for entry-level jobs. Emily's dad's voice broke. We were completely wrong, but you're still our daughter, right? Because I let everyone down last week and was an embarrassment to them. I stood up for the Thompson name. Now I'm the most famous Thompson ever. Suddenly, family issues came up. Please, Mom whispered. We want to. I looked around the dining room at the signs of success to make it right. Had shaped my life. They wanted me to be successful, but only on their terms. I told them, finally Wallace & Sons will be. Mom, and Dad's retirement package from Thompson Global Technologies is fully merged into SAFE. Michael's secrets will stay hidden as long as he doesn't say anything. And I turn to you, to my mom. You need to realize that your daughter is not only successful, but she's more successful than you ever were. Thought about things her own way, and Mom asked about Sunday dinners. We should be able to see it. My calendar is pretty full between Tokyo, Beijing, and Silicon Valley. I looked at my watch and saw a faint Peck Phillip worth more than their car. Also, I have a video call with Singapore in an hour. As I walked to Emily, that AI plan. You made 3 years ago, Dad yelled through the door. I found it in my old files a while ago. It was great, but we couldn't see it because we were blind. It was the last time I looked back. No, Dad, you weren't blind. You just couldn't see past. Of your own standards, but that's okay. It made the view from the top even better. The driver held the Maybach's door open for Miss Thompson. No, I smiled as I thought of They didn't believe in me, but I built a kingdom. Take me to the office. Happiness doesn't sleep, and neither do I. The car drove off, leaving the family finally realized that their most important accomplishment wasn't raising a successful kid, but daughter they hadn't seen coming. Sometimes the best way to get back at someone isn't to prove people wrong, it's going above and beyond what they thought you could do.